Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm John DeGore, the Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Mission. I'm joined by Cheney Adams, the Director of Communications at the Mission, and obviously Ambassador Nikki Haley. Thank you for joining us for this presidency, U.S. Presidency of the Security Council press briefing. We're happy to share with you some of U.S. priorities for the month of September, which we know will be a very busy one, but hopefully a very productive one. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ambassador Haley, who will offer some initial remarks.
Good afternoon. It's great to see so many faces interested in September and hopefully interested in the United States presidency. You will see that this presidency, one, obviously, it will have an American theme in every way, but it will also have a Southern twist to it. As basically, when things get intense, we smile, and when they get more intense, we smile bigger. So that's a lot of what's going to happen. We start off with the Security Council this morning with a very American Southern chicken and waffles breakfast. They got used to the fact that we taught them some American slang. We taught them about bless your heart. They learned that today. And we'll continue to talk about different things related to what make us so proud to be Americans and more about their host country, because this is a country they want to know more about. We will obviously focus on the southern part of the country because it's a part that they know least about, and so we look forward to that. This September, you'll continue to see the U.S. presidency of the Security Council under this administration as a presidency of firsts. Last year, we brought human rights to the Security Council for the first time because we think human rights and international peace and security are linked. We demonstrated this linkage with the event that we hosted. The first will continue during this presidency, starting with, and you may have seen this morning, the first ever open program of work meeting. Tomorrow morning, we will hold the Security Council's first ever meeting on the situation in Nicaragua. There have been reports of hundreds of civilian casualties and arbitrary detentions by President Ortega's security forces. It's important that the world hear the latest on the violence in Nicaragua. It is critical that the Security Council be briefed on the situation on the ground, how the political dialogue is going, and what the Organization of American States is doing to help the situation. We have been in contact with the OAS, and our goal is to strengthen and support them as they go through this process. In another first, we will host the Security Council's first meeting devoted to how corruption affects global conflicts. This will be one of our signature events for the month, and we'll host that briefing on Monday, September 10th. We treat corruption too often as an afterthought when it comes to peace and security. We'll address corruption as a cross-cutting issue that undermines stability in crises around the world. Secretary General Guterres will speak at the meeting and offer the UN's perspective on corruption. Our goal is to show that corruption is actually a fundamental cause of conflict that the Council should be addressing. It was a protest against corruption in Tunisia that triggered the Arab Spring. Today, in South Sudan, the ruling class's theft of oil revenues increases the conflict there. And in the DRC, the struggling electoral process is hindered by corruption and the loss of trust that it produces. That afternoon, we'll host a follow-on ARIA formula meeting specifically on Venezuela, where corruption has led to one of the worst man-made humanitarian crises in a generation. We'll be inviting some members of Venezuelan civil society to share with the Security Council how Maduro's regime is systematically corrupt and how it's pulling resources away from its people so that it can continue to prop up its dictatorship. Another highlight of our presidency will be an update on our efforts to make peacekeeping missions more effective, efficient, and accountable. On Wednesday, September 12th, we'll hold the mandatory annual briefing to the Security Council on this issue, and we will once again hear from the Secretary General. The United States will use this event to focus on improving peacekeeping performance, including eliminating sexual exploitation and abuse. In yet another first, we will be introducing a resolution on peacekeeping that would require the UN to hold peacekeepers, troop and police contributing countries, and the Secretariat accountable for performance failures. Passing this resolution would give a major boost to the Secretary General's Action for Peacekeeping side event during High Level Week, since peacekeeping performance is one of the pillars of the event. We will continue to find ways to make UN peacekeeping better every chance that we get. Of course, we'll also address the regular business in Council. We'll discuss developments in Syria next Thursday, September 6th, and on September 20th. In the first meeting, we'll discuss chemical weapons, including our concern about continued threats of chemical weapons used by the Assad regime against their own people. We'll get an update on the political process as well, which needs to keep moving forward with the help of the UN and Special Envoy de Mistura. I will tell you that the Security Council already had conversations this morning. There was an overwhelming majority that wants to see a meeting on Idlib. So right now we're scheduling that for Friday. It will either be 9:30 or 10 a.m. that we will be having that meeting. Those are just a few of the highlights for the month. Of course, as you can see, there's a full agenda, and we'll also be prepared to respond to any developments that come up along the way. And you'll note that we plan to hold all of these events in the open chamber. That's part of our push for transparency and accountability for the Security Council. It's something that's been a priority for me ever since I became a state legislator, and it remains a priority for me today. So we will address all of these issues in the weeks before High Level Week. Now, to High Level Week, when I met the Security Council members this morning, I shared with them a few of the President's priorities for this year's UNGA, and I'm happy to share them with you of course. Also, to kick off the event, as he did last year with reform, this time it will be on counter-narcotics. We have asked all of the countries to co-sponsor, basically saying that they will all work towards supporting counter-narcotics as we address the drug issue around the world. It's a very important issue to the President, and the President will issue a global call to action on the drug problem to the assembled world leaders. The drug problem is complex and affects nearly every country in the world, from growers to financiers, traffickers, and users. We look forward to leading the world in taking action to tackle this global challenge. Second, the President intends to chair a meeting of the Security Council, and the topic will be on Iran. He is calling the meeting to address Iran's violations of international law and the general instability Iran sows throughout the entire Middle East region. So we're working hard to make sure it's a very productive visit for the President. We will have multiple cabinet officials that are here again for High Level Week, and with a lot of participation. And so with that, I will tell you we are excited about our presidency in September. It is a very busy month. I cried when I first found out that I had the presidency in September, but I'm over it now. So I will tell you that we are going to make it fun. It will be hospitable. It will certainly be open to the press in every way, and we will do everything we can to make sure that it goes seamlessly for not just the council members, the GA members, the secretariat, as well as for all of you. So I thank you for taking the time to be here, and now I'm going to turn it over to John and Cheney to decide who goes first.
All right, we'll take as many of your questions as we can. I would just ask that when you're called on to please say your name and your outlet. So we'll go with Michelle.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Madam President.
Michelle.
On behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thank you for this briefing and good luck with the month.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the open meetings that give us some work to do here. I had a couple of questions for you on Myanmar. Would you support more US sanctions on Myanmar in the wake of the UN report last week? And there is also the US report coming, which you said mirrors the UN report. Would you support more US sanctions? And would you push for any action at the Security Council on Myanmar, as futile as that might be? If you are planning to do that, if you could elaborate on what you might be pushing for. And on Iran, they can ask to speak at this meeting. President Rouhani will be here. Do you think it might be helpful to have him in the room at the table as well for this meeting?
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. So first of all, you're welcome for the open meetings and all the work that comes with it. When it comes to Burma, it's one that really, if you talk to any Security Council member, it is extremely concerning. Because unlike any other issue, when there is a problem, we discuss the problem, we talk to the government, it moves forward. In this situation, we still have a government that's in denial. And there is still a military that refuses to be held accountable. And so we see Burma as a serious issue. You combine that with the two reporters yesterday that just for covering the issues in Burma, they are now being, they were sentenced to 7 years in prison. So we will get even more loud about that as well, for being in prison for telling the truth, basically. The U.S. report does mirror the UN report quite a bit, and both are horrible, and both have cases that will turn your stomach. And so for that reason, I think you will see not just the United States, but the entire Security Council continue to really try and shed light on Burma, and for the government and the military to acknowledge that this is a terrible situation that until they acknowledge happened, can't be fixed. So when it comes to your question on sanctions, the U.S., obviously the report needs to come out first, and then we'll see what actions happen after the fact. In terms of the Security Council, that was a topic that came up at breakfast that no one wants to let that go. So I think you'll continue to see conversations in the Security Council on what else can be done. When it comes to Iran, I think that rule applies just like it would in Nicaragua, that the country can speak if there's a Security Council meeting. So I think that would be up to him as to whether he would want to speak, but I believe that according to the rules, he would have that right.
And you would agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah. And just a quick follow-up, what kind of action do you think the council could take?
On Burma?
Myanmar.
I mean, I think it really is a discussion that the Security Council has to make, because I think everyone has acknowledged that it's bad, and everyone's stumped at the fact that the government still has not acknowledged it was bad. And I think if you heard in the last Security Council meeting, there was still a denial there by the ambassador and not an acceptance of what has happened. And so I think that if we continue to talk about it, they will continue to know it's not going to go away. But I think the council has to make some hard decisions. We can't just continue to say we're unified against Burma. We have to say we're unified for the people of Burma, and this is what we're going to do about it.
Ambassador Pam.
Thank you very much,
Hi,
Madam President, and good luck on the month. We're looking forward to it. From Pamela Falk from CBS News. My question is about South Korea. The Blue House has announced that President Trump will be meeting with President Moon Jae-in. What do you expect out of that, and is there anything the Security Council can do, particularly in light of the Russia and China blocking of additional designations? Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I can tell you that obviously the United States and South Korea continue to have a strong relationship, a strong working relationship as we continue with Japan on this issue. The sanctions were important because the sanctions, unfortunately, was the only way we could get the attention of North Korea. I think that combined with the rough talk from the president and the international community's isolation of North Korea really brought them to the table. I think South Korea and the United States want to continue working together to figure out how we can constructively get North Korea to denuclearize. And, we knew this wasn't going to happen overnight. We knew this wasn't going to be easy. But I think that so far, we should all take comfort in the fact that there have not been any more ballistic missile tests, that dialogue is actually happening. But that will only happen as long as we stand firm on the sanctions, as we stand firm on all of the isolation, and we let Chairman Kim know that just because we shake hands and we smile at each other does not mean that the international community is okay with their building of ballistic missiles. So having said that, I think that you will continue to see that strength. The Security Council again today kind of made that point known this morning at our breakfast, that we have to make sure we stand strong on this, and we'll see what happens. Russia and China continue to cause problems. I know we're in the 1718 committee now. We're trying to release a report, and they're trying to block it. I think that, it flies in the face of the international community for Russia and China to not follow the same rules as everyone else. And we have to make sure that they know they are not exempt on their relationship with North Korea compared to every other country. We're all in this together. They can't all of a sudden decide to jump ship. and do that. And so the United States has made it very clear that if we see any violations in the sanctions, we're going to act. And I think the Security Council believes that was a lot of work to get through those 3 sanctions packages. We will take that strongly if we see violations. We have seen that on the cap, on the fuel cap. We've seen that with Russia on the laborers. And I think that it is incumbent on every member of the international community to not give anyone a pass unless they want to see that testing start back up again. Thank you.
Richard in the back.
Thank you, John. Richard Roth, CNN. It's good to see you. We don't often hear from you in front of the press, but the news wheel of fate has delivered the Bob Woodward book today.
Yes.
I see your southern smile disappearing there.
It's back.
Look, you're a cabinet member. The book portrays a devastating portrait of senior Trump administration aides hiding documents, exasperated with the president, increasingly worried about erratic behavior, ignorance, penchant for lying. Would you, for the documentaries, which will be done, I'm sure, in the future, your answer, care to comment, confirm, deny? Thank you.
I just found out before I walked in here that there was some sort of leaks from the book or things that were coming out about the book. So I don't know exactly what is being said. I can tell you this. This, like every other book that has come out and every book that's going to come out, you're going to have a certain group of readers that love the book and want to talk about all the salacious parts of the book, and you're going to have a lot of people who denounce the book and say this is what divides America. So I think people read in it what they want to read. I think they see what they want to see. What I can tell you is what I know, and I know that the president has been a great partner to me on foreign security. I meet with him often. I talk with him often. When I have concerns, I bring them to him. He listens, he's respectful, and he engages back. So if there are people who say certain things in the book, I'll just tell you to take it with a grain of salt, just like we've done every book before. And, every president has had these types of books come out. There'll be more, and I'll tell you the same thing. You'll have some who love it and some who hate it based on what they think of the president.
James.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. Can I ask you about Idlib, Ambassador? You've called for a meeting on Friday. You've already put out strong words in a tweet. The president has put out strong words in a tweet too, and they've been dismissed by Moscow and Damascus. We're obviously going to get words of condemnation on Friday, but what more than words? What action can you do? And going back to that book, staying on the subject of Syria, the book claims that President Trump ordered Assad to be assassinated, and then General Mattis refused to carry out those orders. From your knowledge of the situation, is there truth in that?
Thank you. I will tell you, Idlib is serious. Let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that there are rumblings. Yes, Russia's making accusations about opponents, white helmets, everything else. Assad is doing the same thing. That is the exact formula they always follow before a chemical weapons attack that Assad does on his own people. What you are seeing is the president saying to Iran, Russia, and Assad, don't go there. We're not going to accept it. It's not okay. What you're saying from us and the fact that the Security Council wants to talk about it is do not let a chemical weapons attack happen on the people of Idlib. The people of Syria have been through too much. This is a tragic situation. And if they want to continue to go the route of taking over Syria, they can do that. But they cannot do it with chemical weapons. They can't do it assaulting their people. And we're not going to fall for it. If there are chemical weapons that are used, we know exactly who's going to use them. And this is the exact same playbook that Russia and Iran and Assad have used every time. And the OPCW has come out and said that we know chemical weapons are used. There's no denying it. The only ones that deny it are Russia, Iran, and Assad. So I think this is for us very typical, but what you're seeing is the Security Council come together and say, we're not going to stand by and wait until after the chemical weapons attack. We want to have a meeting now to discuss what should not happen. I think you saw the president get out in front of it yesterday and say, don't make us have to respond, because he's made it very clear if chemical weapons are used, the United States will respond.
And on the assassination of Assad, you are privy to all of those secret talks. Can you tell us, has that ever been planned or contemplated?
I have the pleasure of being privy to those conversations when we've dealt with each chemical weapon strike, when we've dealt with all of the responses, when we've dealt with everything. And I have not once ever heard the president talk about assassinating Assad.
Benny, in the back.
Welcome, Ambassador. Benny Avni of New York Post.
Where am I looking?
Over here, over
Oh,
here.
way in the back. Okay.
So, you visited Latin America recently, and let's tie it up with Iran. Oh, let's start first with Iran. What exactly are you planning to have in that meeting on Iran? Is it going to be on JCPOA? Of course, there's like some dispute between you and other members of the council, including allies, about that. And also, did you learn anything in Latin America about Iran's involvement in that region?
I think that, there is a growing concern about Iran, and some are old things, some are new things. But I think if you continue to look at the spread Iran has had on supporting terrorism, if you continue to look at the ballistic missile testing that they're doing, if you continue to look at the sales of weapons like we see with the Houthis in Yemen, these are all violations of Security Council resolutions. And these are all threats to the region, and these are all things that the international community need to talk about. President Trump is very adamant that we have to start making sure that Iran is falling in line with international order like every other country. And we continue to see them engage in things that are not helpful. And whether it's in Lebanon, whether it's in Yemen, whether we're looking in Syria, all of these issues, we continue to see one factor that is exactly the same, and that's the presence of Iran. So we are going to talk about that, and I understand that there are some members who find that uncomfortable to talk about, and I personally think that when we talk about things that are uncomfortable in the Security Council, good things happen. That's it.
That's it. George?
Ambassador, on Iran, Latin America, could you address that question that I asked? Yeah.
No response on that.
Yeah. Did you? Yes. Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press, and a proud New Yorker, I must say. Anyway, my question is regarding a statement by a UN Special Rapporteur who deals with Iran, who criticized the U.S. sanctions on Iran and claims that only the Security Council, under the UN Charter, has the authority to impose sanctions. And he called the U.S. sanctions, quote, illegitimate. So I'd like to know your views in both your capacity now as the President of the Security Council and in your national capacity regarding this assertion. Thank you.
My views in both capacities are the same, which is we made this very clear at the time that when we saw that Iran was violating Security Council resolutions, we called on the international community to do something about it. We asked them to address it. We told them we would work with them on it. We tried to talk to them about resolutions, and we got nothing. And so President Trump said, we're not going to be in a deal that's a farce. And since then, we have talked with our European allies. We've talked with other allies about the situations of Iran. They all agree it's a problem. I think that this was a situation where sometimes you have to admit that a deal you worked on was not perfect. And, we had hoped that they would try and correct it. They didn't want to do that, so now we're back at where we were. The United States believes that we have the ability to have those sanctions put on Iran because it goes back to the fact that we think they violated Security Council resolutions and others. We have seen that whether it's North Korea or whether it's Venezuela, they all have issues when we put sanctions down on their countries for certain reasons, but the United States feels that we have that right. It's all right.
High tech here. Thank you. Do you think that the Iran meeting will segue into the Palestinian issue? And secondly, while Iran has been condemned for all sorts of actions in Yemen, the Council's been hesitant about condemning Saudi Arabia and the coalition, not just for the latest strike against children, but there are constant airstrikes that have killed civilians.
On the Iran issue, no, I don't see that necessarily segueing into the Palestinians. I can't promise that, but that's not the intent. In terms of what has happened in Yemen, I think each country put out their own comments. I know I personally put out comments that we can't ever see innocent people killed under the auspices of trying to settle a dispute. Since then, we certainly gave our concerns to Saudi Arabia. I will tell you that we appreciated the transparency of them saying they were going to do an investigation. We were concerned, but they surprised us all because they did the investigation very quickly, came out and admitted fault and said they would, you can't totally make it right with families, but said that they would do something to try and do that, and then followed up by saying they're going to try and figure out what went wrong and how they can make it right. Having said that, you know, we'll continue to say that both the Houthis and the coalition need to work with Martin Griffiths on this. We are completely behind Martin and everything he's trying to do to bring peace to that area. The people of Yemen have suffered long enough, and this dispute has gone on long enough. And when we have to go and start talking about humanitarian supplies at the level that we're talking about, even if we were to send tons of convoys in there, none of us would feel good about it. And so I think all of the Security Council, I've never seen them as united as we are on Yemen and getting behind Martin Griffiths to see something happen. And we know he's got his talks this week, and so we certainly are watching this week to see if something can happen. But it would benefit the coalition and the Houthis to come together and realize the international community is not going to deal with this much longer.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Evelyn Leopold, independent media, alternate, and whatnot.
Yes, we know who you are.
Thank you, Madam
Good
Ambassador.
afternoon.
My name is Ali Barada. I'm with Al-Sharq Al-Awsat newspaper and with France 24. My question is that the United States has chosen a country-specific issue for a high-level meeting presided by President Trump on Iran. Can you shed a little bit of light on why you're doing this and whether you intend to bring Iran back to the agenda of the Security Council? And also, I have a question about the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Obviously, we've seen in the past few months that you lost few fights in the General Assembly, in the ECOSOC, and in the Security Council in this regard. Are you going to review the way that this administration is dealing with this issue in order to really push the peace in the Middle East? Thank you.
Thank you. So in reference to Iran, I mean, the president and this entire administration see such issues with it. It's hard to find a place that has conflict where Iran isn't in the middle of it. And we think that's a problem. And we think that they have been ignored and been given a pass for too long. And we think it's time that Iran stand up and explain themselves in Syria, and that they have to answer for what they're doing with the Houthis in Yemen, and the fact that in Lebanon and Hezbollah, they continue to be interactive with that, with some of the other things that they're starting to do. And we want to make sure that they understand the world is watching. That's the biggest reason for this meeting, is the world is watching. And there's nothing we would love more than to have Iran come into the mainstream international community and be, you know, a valid country that wants to do good in the world. We're not seeing that. And so we're not looking for a product. We're not looking for a continuation, so to speak, of these Security Council meetings on Iran. What we're looking for is to get heads of state and heads of delegation to talk about what Iran is doing around the world and what we as an international community can do to combat that. In terms of the Israel-Palestinian issue, it's the issue that's been there for years. So to say that we haven't done well in the General Assembly or the Security Council, I think we've done great. And I'll tell you, the reason we've done great is because we're not going to be pushed over. We're not going to allow our friends in Israel to be pushed over. We think there's a real conversation that needs to be had. I think that every Palestinian deserves a better life. And every Palestinian should look at the Palestinian Authority and say, what are you doing to help us? Because really, the Palestinian Authority is not doing anything about Gaza. They're not doing anything to help the situation there. And what we're saying is, let's don't continue what we've always done. At some point, something has to give. And so beating up on Israel, to me, is something that I think some countries find easy to do. I think it's something that some countries take satisfaction in. But if they truly care about the Palestinian people, they will go to the Palestinian Authority and ask the real hard questions. They'll go to the Arab countries in the region and ask, where are you? Why aren't you doing anything to help the Palestinians in the region? Because I think it's been easy to point fingers at Israel and point fingers at the United States. But where is everyone? Where are they when it comes to helping the Palestinian people? Because we're waiting for them to step up, and I think the time has come.
Hi, my name is Veronica. I'm with
Hi,
W
Veronica.
Radio Colombia. It seems that Colombia right now is going to start criminalizing users of drug, allowing police officers to confiscate any amount of drug in a person, even if it is under the minimum dose usage allowed. Does the United States support that kind of criminalization of users? And on the theme of Colombia, is the United States going to have an official meeting with President Duque, yourself, or President Trump?
First of all, we had a fantastic meeting to Colombia. It's a beautiful country with amazing people. And, you know, it's a country that I also think the United States has so much in common with, just in the way we think and the values and what we want to see for our people. In Colombia, I spent time with President Duque talking about where he wants to go. I think our two biggest issues that we talked about were how we were going to counter drugs together and how we could best assist. We didn't get into the country-specific laws he may or may not be doing. What we said was, how can we help you eradicate and substitute that economy that is going on, and how can we look towards development of that area? And so I think that he is very, what we appreciate about President Duque is he's not just talking about eradication. He understands that the substitution is going to be just as important, and we want to help him do that. If he puts laws into place that he thinks will get him there, we're going to continue to support him. I do hope that President Trump and President Duque meet. I know that President Trump does want to meet with President Duque, but I know that we will have some high-level meeting of some sort in reference to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and good luck with the presidency and to the mission. I would like to ask again about Iran, but I would like you to tell us, does this administration has a strategy with regard to Iran? And does that strategy include regime change? Do you like this regime to be changed in Iran ultimately? Thank you.
Thank you. I will tell you that the strategy for Iran is very simple. We want to expose the negative aspects that they're doing. We want to expose the violations of the Security Council resolutions that we are seeing. We want to strengthen the voices of the Iranian people who so desperately want a better life, and the United States thinks they should have it. The idea that they are using all kinds of means to oppress and keep them from having any sort of say in their government is a problem. And so we're going to stand with the Iranian people. This is not about regime change and who's the next leader. This is everything about standing with the Iranian people and say they have every right to be heard in their government, and they have every right to change it if it's not being led the right way. And we're going to continue to expose all the violations that Iran does. And we think the international community should join us with that, because it is an issue for the future, and it is an issue that affects every country in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Ambassador, my name is Masood Haider. I represent the Dawn newspaper of Pakistan. When President Trump took over, he had also said, I'm paraphrasing, that he said that he will make the deal of the century for the Palestinians. He said that, and we all know that. Now, what is happening with the United States cutting off the funds to the Palestinians and UNRWA and so forth, the Palestinians are suffering the most. So what is it that he's going to do? I mean, that you are privy to more than anybody else, that he is going to do in order to make the deal of the century? What is going to happen?
So are we talking about Pakistan or Palestinians?
Palestinians.
Palestinians.
Yeah. I just wanted to introduce
Yes.
myself.
So I will tell you that I have had conversations with the president about the plight of the Palestinians, about their lack of quality of life, and the fact that they deserve more and better. That is the reason he put the priority on the peace plan, was very much about the fact that this was a plan where neither side would like it, but the Palestinians had no place to go but up with this peace plan. So it was very important for him to put some time and effort into that. I can tell you that Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt have done unbelievably detailed work in it. I have read the plan. It is thoroughly done. It is well thought out from both sides, the Palestinians and the Israelis. It takes into account every aspect of everything. But again, this is a plan that's going to be put forward that both sides have to be willing to hear. If they are both willing to hear it, I think that this could be a solution for the region. I think it could be a solution for both Palestinians and Israelis. And I think it would be a solution and a testament to what can happen when two sides come together in the name of helping their people. And so with that, the president's full intent is to completely do everything he can with the peace plan. In reference to the Palestinians and cutting aid, we're not cutting aid to the Palestinians, we're cutting aid to UNRWA. And there's a big difference. UNRWA has... it's a concern because UNRWA is not serving Palestinians. UNRWA is a political arm that claims to serve Palestinians. We have, for 2 years, asked UNRWA to reform itself because it has this ongoing number of refugees that is unsustainable. We can't sustain, and the world knows, everybody knows that every year they come and say the schools aren't going to open. But they keep adding numbers of refugees to where we're never going to be able to sustain that. And what we said was, you saw we gave $60 million. UNRWA didn't say thank you. They criticized us and attacked us for not giving more. There is no one that has given more money to the Palestinians than the United States. Up until last year, $6 billion. And again, we're going to say, if the other members in the region don't feel this is worth the investment, why should the United States feel like it's worth the investment? At some point, the region has to step up and say they care about the Palestinians. Don't blame us for cutting aid. Don't blame us for saying that we think UNRWA is political and that it needs to be reformed. If you think it's fine, go you pay for it. But don't blame the United States for a faulty political organization that I don't think is doing justice to the people of the Palestinian community. And on top of that, UNRWA should not be the one taking care of the people in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority should be taking care of the people in Gaza. And we would much rather work directly with the Palestinian Authority and directly with Jordanians than we would with UNRWA. And that is the reason that we cut that
Deal of
off.
the century. Century is still possible?
Only if Abbas comes to the table. We have ensured that Netanyahu will come to the table. Abbas, for the good of his people, needs to come to the table.
Maggie?
Thank you, Ambassador. Over here. Margaret Bashir with the Voice of America. So, Ambassador, you said you've read the peace plan proposal. So might the administration be getting close to rolling it out, and might it happen during UNGA? Could you give us some sort of perhaps indication? And you said about Mahmoud Abbas that at some point something has to give. What is the Palestinian Authority doing to help? And you're saying it's the PA's responsibility to take care of the people in Gaza. So should we infer from that perhaps the administration's patience is done with Mr. Abbas and that you would like to see some other leader in the Palestinian Authority, or how should we interpret these remarks?
I think the Palestinian peoples should be frustrated with Abbas in the fact that he's not stepping up, he's not dealing with Hamas, he's not doing things to better the Palestinian people. The peace plan, yes, it's getting close, but I'll tell you right now, don't expect it during high-level week or anything like that. That's not going to happen, but it goes to show how detailed it is and how many different countries, leaders, and everyone they have actually engaged with to do this plan. And so, again, I can't say enough good things about it, but I will tell you again, for the good of the Palestinian people, the region, the international community, we have to put pressure on Abbas and say it's time. It's time for a better life for Palestinians, and only he can deliver that. And we have to acknowledge that Hamas is part of the problem.
Go with George in the back. No? Okay. Then right here.
Thank you. Hatem El Gamasi from New Egypt TV. Congratulations, Madam Ambassador,
Thank you.
for your presidency.
Thank you.
Glad it will bring a southern flavor to the place. President Trump warned yesterday of what he called a grave humanitarian mistake of President Assad and his allies attack the province of Idlib. Is the U.S. against any military actions in Idlib, or they are against Assad regime gaining control back of the city? Also, regarding the Palestinian-Israeli peace deal, some reports spoke of confederation between Jordan and West Bank and Gaza, which the report spoke it was rejected by Jordan and the Palestinians. Can you shed more light about this topic, please? Thank you.
We know that the environment is moving in the same direction that it has moved in the past when Assad and Russia and Iran have used chemical weapons. That is why you're hearing the president give a statement. It is a direct statement to, we know what you're planning, don't go there. I think that you're finding the international community is saying the same thing. We've seen this game before, don't try and play it. And so that's what the outcry is in terms of Idlib. That's why you'll see the meeting on Friday. We hope that we are stopping something before it starts, and not waiting until after it's happened to condemn. This is, again, trying to be a preventative method to make sure that the chemical weapons are never used in the first place when it comes to Idlib. In terms of the details of the plan, I can tell you there are a lot of false statements out there about the plan. And I'm not going to elaborate on any of it, but the plan will be released soon enough, and I think then you can make your decisions off of that.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we'll go with Jamie.
Jamie Lovegrove at the Post and Courier in
Jamie,
South
can you
Carolina.
stand up? Because this is a South Carolinian reporter that y'all should all be nice to, because he traveled all the way up. So welcome, Jamie. We're happy to have you.
Ambassador, I have just a few quick ones. On a personal level, I'm curious what you learned from your month as president last year, and what you'll take into that experience going into this month. I'm curious if there are any consideration to events being planned outside of New York. And I'm also curious, I understand you were at Clemson this weekend. If you have any thoughts on the Clemson-Texas A&M game this weekend, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Last year versus this year. Last year I was truly drinking out of a fire hydrant. This year I'm drinking out of a fire hydrant. So it is, I think it's a lot of information. It's changing with the times. It's the world events changing. But I'm honored to do it. It's a blessing to represent the United States of America, and to do it in front of this World Forum is something I appreciate. I can tell you last year it was still a very steep learning curve. This year I feel at least a little bit more comfortable with procedures and how things happen, and more how to strategize and work within the way that we want to. And so I think I feel a little bit more emboldened in the fact that it's not the newness I'm working through. Now it's just dealing with the issues and the strategy that go along with it. We get along really well, all of the Security Council members. I have always tried to host them outside of the Security Council on multiple events, whether it's new members, outgoing members, because I think that we deal with heavy enough issues that we should have to like each other through that. And so that has worked out well. events outside of New York City. One of the things that you do when you are president of the Security Council is you try and teach them the culture of your country. You try and teach them information about the country. And so I would say that we very much would appreciate and would like to show the Security Council the example of a state that might have gone from an agricultural community to a textile community to being a tourism mecca and a manufacturing hub. We would also like to give an example of one of the best states in the country. And so I will look forward to the opportunity to showing them that. And then on Clemson, my Tigers rocked it this weekend. They were awesome. I think it's going to be a fantastic season. I think that we are national championship bound. And I continue to stay in contact with Coach Dabo before every game to give little tips of advice.
Thanks again for joining us, everyone. We look forward to working with you this month.